So
live streaming.
Just so everybody knows out there who is watching, before we even get started on this, we are monitoring comments. We have that ability. So no matter where you're watching from, whether it be LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, please go ahead and leave comments in the message box, and we will answer them. Anthony, do you want to go ahead and get this started so that I can handle a couple of things really quick on the back end? Thank you.
Yep. So welcome everybody to our Lunch and Learn. We are sitting here on day 3 of level 2 with our soon to be graduated level 2 master certified life coach students. And we're going over topics concerning, business, marketing, and, coaching in general. So myself, I work at Certified Life Coach as the project director. That means I do a lot of stuff in the back end that not a lot of people get to see. And I also write the blogs and the articles as well. And I've worked with Brooke for a marketing firm as well. Brooke, if you want to give your quick introduction while you multitask.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Brooke. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at CLCI. I also have a background in business strategy, as well as I just have a lot of business and marketing experience. I've had a marketing firm. I basically ran entertainment and creative for 15 amusement parks. And I have just been doing this and in this realm for quite a while. So if you have any questions, please feel free to answer them. That's what we're here for. But as Anthony said, we welcome your input too. If you guys have experience in any of these spaces, please share them. We would love to know. So Anthony, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Baton, back to me. And we can start with our first question. Who would like to go first? I see Iris and Linda in the chat, or not the chat, but in the video. So I'm going to be picking on you guys first. Or Susie.
No, Susie, yes.
All right, I have a question. Maybe this will help start things off. So I am a full-time medical professional. I have a job at a hospital. I have patients on call. Like, that's my focus. That's my full-time job. Very committed to it. A lot of hats, so on. What I want to do is to kind of build something, kind of, they call it the physician side gigs, kind of, but to do something on the side more so. I don't know that I'm ready to go out there and do like a Facebook spread or one of those things yet. I want it to be word of mouth. I have a lot of patients actually who are in the world that you guys work in. They're the ones who came to me and said, you should really do this because you do it anyway in your practice. You should market this as a special skill set that you're learning, which is why I took the course. I didn't know, is this short-sighted? I have a few clients teed up, people who I've actually put off and said, can you just wait? I want to get my second level certification. I want to do this right, create an LLC on the side and do it. So I didn't know what your thoughts were about that, to kind of start it slow, word of mouth. And I don't know if you were comfortable discussing, what people start off at, asking for. I've heard everything. We heard Daniel tell us about a gentleman, whose commands up to 5,000 an hour, who's a guru in the field. But from starting where I am, and does the MD, having an MD, like, where does that, what does that do for me, or does nothing? So your honest thoughts about that. Thank you.
So that's a lot to cover. The good part is, it sounds like you've already got clients who are wanting to work with you. Which is, not a lot of people have that once they start. My question, to sort of clarify sort of where you're coming from, is the coaching going to be its own separate entity?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't want people to come to me to talk about, like their vital signs, like blood pressure and heart rate. Like, I can do that, but I'd rather put the doctor hat on in the doctor's office. You can come see me as a patient. I want this to be more about, actually, what gave me this idea is my own professional development, personal development work, but also in exploring why patients are having so many of their symptoms, I feel, are so tied to what's happening in their lives. So I want to be able to provide that too.
I mean, obviously, I see what you're doing. You're creating a separate business. And so that way, And you do have by word of mouth, which is actually what I will tell you is probably, it's one of the best ways for sure to get patients, to get clients. Do you like that? So to get clients, because first and foremost, word of mouth means they know who you are. There's already a sense of trust there, right? Whereas I'm sure as you guys have experienced to some degree, there is a lot of noise on Facebook. So there's a lot, and on any social media, there's a lot of just overwhelming advertising and people and things coming at you. And it's really hard to form a relationship that is of trust with people on social media, even on the internet in general. That's because we are very jaded, because we've experienced in one way or another moments where we know, or we've seen others that have entered into, one thing or another, that they should not have trusted that person or that situation. So we definitely, as human beings, traverse the internet, traverse social media with our walls up. Word of mouth comes in a way, you're in a position of trust with people already. Because ultimately what you'll find, marketing is about developing trust. It really is. Because nobody's going to hand their money to somebody that they don't trust or believe in. So that's really what it comes down to. So if you've already got customers or clients or whomever, all the way down, further down in that funnel, further down in that where they're trusting you, the smaller the funnel gets, the more trust there is that has been built. So that is a wonderful place to start, and you'll find a tremendous amount of success there. So I would say absolutely.
And then in regard to the pricing as well.
Oh yeah.
Some things to consider. They're not getting, a medical diagnosis, their insurance isn't going to cover it. So you have to balance it between what is your time worth versus how much the client can actually pay for the services. I can't really speak further than that because I don't know what your time is worth to you.
Yeah, and I will say, Anthony and I, we've had clients that have charged the span the gamut. Again, one of those things where it's been, we've had clients that would say, okay, you have to work with me a minimum of 12 weeks, I'm going to charge a minimum of a large amount of money for that. And we've had clients that are much more humble and that are much more willing to charge less than that. And so really it's what can you live with? What is that number? What sits right with you? And what can you own? Ultimately, you probably will change it. It will flex. You will raise it or lower it or what have you, because it's about picking that number, putting it out there, seeing how you feel, seeing if you can own it, and then seeing if it sits right once you get going. Because there's been many times I have raised my prices. Absolutely, there has been. And it's been out of necessity. It's been I guess I would say it's always out of necessity, because it begins with, well, I can with this, but then as you get people and as your time becomes less, it becomes more valuable. So you then I end up raising my prices because I realize, okay, my time is precious. And so I just don't have the workload, and it's a tremendous way to sort of, I guess, filter through folks. And now that's not to say that if you don't want to, if you want to help somebody that maybe does not have the higher dollar, there is a way to do that as well. And I've done the same, where you set aside time specifically for those folks, and then make sure that you're always nurturing yourself first, though. So in these spaces, did that help? Okay, wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else got any questions?
I see Linda and I see Iris. Is it?
Yes. Hello, Boke, and also Anthony. Hi.
Hi.
Oh, wow. There's two Irises.
Hello. Yes. I'm double.
I see the audio coming
the
in.
Better is double. Now, I would like to ask you about mental health coaching. What is your take on that?
Well, first and foremost, I would say it's very broad. I would personally, if you were my client, ask you to narrow your focus. Secondly, I also would move cautiously, right? Because there are a lot of mental health spaces that we as coaches should not be working in.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to say, even if you are a mental health professional, and me and Brooke have read a case study of some lawsuit that happened a while ago, where a mental health professional was giving coach services, there still needs to be a very clear distinction of what you're offering. And if the skill of life coaching is being put into your mental health services, like as a psychologist or counselor, it's great. It's another skill set to add. If you're adding it as an additional service to what you already offer, then there needs to be somewhat of a distinction between the mental health field and then the coaching services, because as of right now, the coaches, we don't really talk in that space of mental health because that's not what we're qualified to do. But that's just with the general overview. We'd have to probably get more specific as to what you meant by mental health coaching.
Yes, and that's why I'd say get more specific. I have a little bit of a different take on it, same take, but also absolutely the same take. But I will say this, it's one of the things, as somebody who personally I have ADHD, I also have PTSD. So I've been through trauma. So what's funny is sometimes in these spaces, trauma comes up a lot. And we as coaches do not treat trauma, right? We don't, but we can work with folks who have experienced trauma. They just have to not be living in that space where that trauma is affecting them and moving forward. It's that timeline, right? So if you're right in the middle, and the middle is what's happening right now, we as coaches are moving forward. We're not moving backwards. And that's really, really the simplest way to sort of create that distinction. But that's not to say that I'm not coachable, because I have ADHD and PTSD. I absolutely am. I just can't be going to a coach to help me treat those conditions. Right.
Yes.
So what was your plan? Because I mean, also, mind you, there is a beautiful symbiosis that happens between when a coach and a therapist or a psychologist work with one another, because the psychologist and therapist can do that before, that past, and you as a coach can do that future work. So you guys can refer to one another when the two parties realize, oh, wait, we're not doing the same thing. We can help one another out. So something to keep in mind. But back to you. So what was your plan? What was it that you wanted to do?
No, I don't have a niche right now, but I'm just, I was confused, on the internet about mental health coaches, and also your colleagues, everybody explained very well where to go, where to not go. But for me also what was confusing was wellness coach, mental health coach, wellness coach. What is the difference between these two?
Well, that's the slippery slope with this coaching. It's one of the reasons that we always try to get you guys to narrow your focus tremendously. Ultimately, wellness, I mean, it can be a number of things, right?
Yeah.
Anthony, our wordsmith.
It's a bit of a vague term. That's like saying I'm a life coach. What does that actually mean?
Right. Yeah.
We want you to be specific in your niche, because wellness, that could be anything. My cup of coffee that I'm drinking is my mental wellness. We do a lot of things for our mental wellness. But what is a person's mental wellness dependent on? Sometimes it's dependent on their financial situation, so they want like a business coach. Other times their mental wellness depends on their marriage, so they want a marriage coach. So what is their mental wellness dependent on? And then what do they need the coaching to go with? And that's how you sort of discover your niche. That's because I'm
one of the many steps. So like ultimately that's why we really harp on bringing that focus in, because the reality is when you boil everything that you guys do down, when you boil it down and you're working with a client, ultimately we're always working with our clients so that they can find a better state of general wellness, right?
Right.
That's ultimately, but it's going to be, the way to get there is not always the same. There are thousands of roads to the same ending. And so the idea is that you're finding your path and helping your client in the same space. So that's why we really narrow the focus to one person with most people. And this is something I've done in my business, and it works tremendously, because then you can actually speak that language. And so it's about narrowing it down to one human being and speaking to one human being, because that one human being is thousands of people, but it is one human being ultimately that you need to speak their language. And there's a language you speak best too. And that's your language, and you're one human being as well. So sort of falls in that realm, if that makes sense.
Yes, the names of coaches are very confusing, I find, but not always, but
And then-
there are a lot of overlapping, and that I need to figure out all the names. Yeah.
So with the not, and so
Yes.
and you don't have to get so stuck in that either, because ultimately, when you see one that is confusing and one that is not confusing, who are you more inclined to work with?
Right. Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say they're not confusing.
No,
Right?
exactly. Yes. Right.
Like, I
It's
know
just
exactly how
interesting
you
to-
can help me.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's work together. If
Yeah.
if it's this vague kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can help me because I'm not certain what it is that you do at that point, right? So we guess that's why getting specific is very critical.
Yes. No, yeah, thank you for your information. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah.
We've got
Linda.
a question that,
Oh, yeah, question. Go for it, Anthony.
oh yeah, we had a question just pop up that we can, I guess, tackle really quickly from Vanessa. Any advice around marketing yourself on Instagram, making a coach specific account, and TikTok? Advice on how to grow your following. My niche is leadership and growth. I wouldn't say I'm qualified to give advice, but I would say that Instagram and TikTok are targeted towards entertainment and very
People are
quick,
not.
very
Yeah.
quick content. You have to capture their interest within the first 5 seconds or so, and it's short content, so
It's free.
it's free too.
So that's a big thing to keep in mind. So you're going to keep in mind anything on social. Like, we're right now putting together a TikTok campaign. I do not anticipate that we will get direct conversions from our TikTok campaigns. I anticipate that we will get people within our funnel. So it'll be further out here. So they're going to have to do a few more steps before they finally become one of our students. They're going to do some investigating, some reading, some various things before they actually become our students. Does that mean that it doesn't work as a system to sort of loop them in and bring them in to our funnel? Absolutely, it does. It certainly does. In Google Ads, we run what they're called display campaigns. Those campaigns run on YouTube, but we don't get any conversions from those campaigns. I don't anticipate to. But what those campaigns do is my conversions of my more specific campaigns, the more search campaigns, those further down the funnel campaigns, increase every single time I run one of those display ads. And why is that? Because we're getting we're looping more human beings into our big funnel. It's just going to take them a little while to get down to the point where they actually kind of convert with us, if that makes sense. Not kind of, they actually convert. The caution on social and everything like that is, remember, it's free content. You're giving yourself freely. So you can have, I worked with a woman that had 500,000 followers, but she could not get any of them to convert. Couple of reasons. She wasn't asking. Another reason is they're used to getting free stuff. So you don't know if somebody who's been getting free stuff if they're ever going to pay for your services. So that's why it's important to put paid offerings out there, even if they're at a lesser value, because you quickly are able to filter between who's actually going to pay you money and who's actually just going to check you out and read your stuff and never really be somebody who's going to convert. So that would be my advice, is to keep the expectation in that space. I expect to do Instagram in order to entertain people, in order to give them information, help their lives, enrich their day, and then make a very clear path down that funnel to you from those places. But just don't anticipate probably too many direct conversions from those platforms, would be my best guess. Now, there are certainly people who can do it and have created entire campaigns around that, and that's around the ask. And they're asking the whole time. They're saying, they're sending direct messages to people. Every message that is messaged to them, they message back, and then they get them into a conversation. And you don't see those conversations. Those conversations are happening in private messages, and that's how they're pulling their conversions typically. So no matter what, you have to be active and participating in social. You got to be social and social. So yeah.
Good soundbite right there.
Thank you.
Linda, you had your hand raised.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. I'm so over social media, I can't stand it.
Me too. But I still use it.
I think what works, so my niche is women midlife up to whatever, retirement, etc. And so Facebook seems to work pretty well. And I've been on, I have another business that I'm retiring out of, and I have a lot of followers from that. So fortunately, I'm finding that these women do know me. And that's where I'm getting my clients, because they already know who I am. And it was crazy because I have a charity that I've had for 20 years, and zillions of blogs that I've written over time, and to build our database. And so when I first started, these women are going, tell me about your coaching. And then I'll say, well, how did you find me? And they go, because I've followed you for years, Linda. And I didn't even get that. It was such a surprise to me. I thought, oh my gosh, all that work back then is going to help with now, which is cool. But anyway, my question for you is, what about SEO? Can you talk
Love my SEO? Anthony and I are both we could call us both SEO experts, you would say. So we are well versed in SEO. One of the reasons that I came into CLCI was because of my SEO knowledge, and SEO is critical. It's a long-term game. Always keep that in mind. Yeah. So you can have perfect SEO on a website today. You're not going to see payoffs for probably a year. So just know it's not like an instant thing. Anthony?
Okay,
really quick before we move forward, SEO, just Susie asked, what is SEO? SEO is search engine optimization, which doesn't help. What that means is basically whenever anybody in Google enters a search term, SEO is how those websites that come up in a certain order, SEO determines that order, if that makes sense. So that way you want to be on the first page, the top one, all of that. You want your SEO to be really, really good. So
Google wants people to find the right information as fast as possible. So if you make their job easier, they're going to like you and they'll push you towards the top if everything, matches. So this is what I've seen with a lot of people who go into business. They'll, start doing their content, they'll start doing their website and their business name, whatever. And then afterwards they learn about SEO and then try to fix everything to get the SEO up to speed. What I would prefer to do if I were to just start a business from scratch is to plan the SEO first, plan the keywords, plan, who am I targeting, what keywords I'm going to be using, and then start to build my business around that SEO. I know Brooke loves SEMrush. Is that what you used to plan out the SEO keywords, Brooke, and compare?
You can also, there's a lot. So the amazing thing about Google, even though they've created the problem that we have to now solve, they also give you the tools for free to help you solve those problems. Yes. In your level 1 textbooks, in the back of the book, there is an SEO guide for you guys. It's a step-by-step SEO guide that was made by me, that was made a few years ago, but still very much applies. So essentially, the word that you should most be concerned about when it comes to SEO is consistency. You want to be consistent with your SEO across the board. So you want to figure out what those keywords are, the things that your search terms, what people will be searching to find you. And then you want to build those out in every part of your website. Basically, you want to put it in your title, you want to put it in your descriptions, you want to put them on your homepage, on each page. The great thing about you, Linda, with what you said you have blogs. Well, one of the things that will work tremendously in your favor is using those blogs if they're underneath the umbrella of what your SEO is speaking to, like what those keywords are. Yeah. Google, what Google does is it's not that you have to have the most blogs, but what Google is looking for is thorough information. They're looking for websites that give thorough and consistent information, and then that are also credited essentially by other websites, and they look for that through linking with other websites. So when you link out to a bigger website that's also like a life coach. So if you knew somebody that was, or even a mental health professional that maybe had a big following, lots of people traveling to their website. If they link to your website and you link back to their website, Google automatically goes, oh, this website is validated by this bigger website. If that makes sense. So that's where those linkings come in very important. And then it also literally, Google scans your website for all of its information, and it looks and makes sure that you're being consistent. It'll look at your blogs, see how much information is there, where those keywords are coming up, how many times. So it's kind of very much a science. If you build a website on Wix, they have a fabulous SEO wizard that helps you through it. And sort of step by step will help you. And it's wonderful for that.
Our website is WordPress.
WordPress, okay.
And I initially hired a company for about, I think I left them after 4 or 5 months. And but we use Yoast on WordPress and also SEMrush.
Okay.
So now we're doing it ourselves, but it is so tedious.
It is. It can be very tedious. Yes. There's more to it than that. It's every picture has to be labeled because for anybody who's sight impaired or hearing impaired, they want to be able to still use those websites for those folks. So having all of those little nuanced details in place is just really very critical. But again, like Anthony said, that's the wonderful thing about building it out from the start is if you're already building it and adding those pieces in, it makes it just become part of that process.
Yeah,
right.
We're not going to start overbuilding. I'll tell you that right now. That was craziness. But so we are one of those people, Anthony. Yes, that we've gone back and we're taking it bit by bit. But do you think that you can just use SEO and that would be enough and forget social media?
It depends on the person, depends on your client. I think that that's a great thing to do. One of the things too, I see in the question, what do you recommend doing SEM? And I would, especially when I was starting out, I'd be like, one of the best things you can do is run an ad for yourself through Google Ads. But there are a lot of steps between one to the other, because you have to be tracking your conversions. You have to be tracking because everything that Google Ads does now, they do through smart campaigns. So they're using systems that are learning what is converting. And if you're not tracking a conversion that is making money, right? A conversion that is financially beneficial to you, you're building entire audiences around people who are not paying you money. And then that's I mean, just the ticket to never making any money. So you have to that's where having those offerings, tracking when money actually is paid to you in your business and tracking it through an SEM structure. If you're doing this for paid per click, if you're doing paying ads, having those structures in place is so critical. And those offers in place, because you need it to be being basically smart optimizing for audiences that are paying you money, and the right audience as well. And not one that just doesn't make sense. There was a woman that I work with that she just put an ad out there. And she didn't target, and it was for a free offering, and she was just getting calls from men, and all of them making her very uncomfortable. And I was like, okay, let's look into this and see why this is happening. And then we narrowed the focus and worked with that. So you just have to really, that's where that targeting and that tracking, it's very critical in that space. But SEM is tremendously beneficial, because most people don't realize when they search something that the top 3 things that come up are typically ads. Yeah. So they're going to click right in.
And I would argue that SEO and SEM are not very different. They're pretty much like interconnected, because your SEM will affect your SEO. If you got people clicking on an ad and it's different than what they're getting on the website when they go to you, the SEO is not jiving with what people are coming into, and that affects the SEO. And makes you not as favorable in Google search if the SEO and SEM are, butting heads. So you want them to be sort of, in unison with what you are offering, what keywords you're using. That way they can feed into them.
And the keywords should match, because you're going to have to enter keywords to your pay-per-click. And those keywords should all, that's where when I say consistency, consistency and tracking is really, really critical.
And Linda, to go back to your question, that is kind of the difference between, if we're just putting together SEO and SEM to just search engine marketing or search marketing. Mm-hmm. Search marketing is very planned. It's very, organized, and you've got a strategy going on, where social media, not to say that it's not planned, but it's sort of like, in my mind, a shotgun method. You're trying to appeal to people through emotions, through, what you're offering to them for free, through entertainment. And then you're trying to sift through that to get people who will actually pay for your services.
Yeah. So exactly. It's much broader. Whereas, what you're speaking to, are you're going to immediately be targeting people who are further in the funnel. and who are closer to converting. Whereas in social, one of the terms that we use is it's problem or solution awareness. Where's the customer awareness? So in social, they're probably not even aware of their problem yet. So you're trying to get them to understand they have the problem. This is the problem. And then you bring them to solution aware, which is where like, I'm the solution, here are the solutions, and you're giving them information. By the time that they're Googling somebody or Googling the issue, they're already problem aware and they're probably already solution aware. At that point, what you're doing is trying to demonstrate to them that you are the best solution. And that's why the marketing on your website will be geared toward testimonials, towards speaking their language, towards also doing that blog where you're actually helping them.
You have a podcast that's on there too that they can listen to if they want to.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, and that's great. And even putting that on your website will help your SEO as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because Google watches and listens to your videos. They have robots to do it all. Yeah.
Are they women?
No. I wish, right? But what it will do is listen and it translates it, and then it goes, okay, if all of that structure is consistent, you're automatically boosted up in the eyes of Google and raised up on that where you are in the searches. Yeah.
And I know, Linda, you said earlier that, you're fed up with social media and, but at the same time, that's where some of the people reached out to you because they already knew you from, private stuff. So
yeah, I think I'll just stick with Facebook because I think that's where my age group is anyway.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, and we would say, stick to one. I mean, honestly, I would recommend doing really well in one space. You don't need to venture out into you don't have to do it all.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah. And you're only one person. Like with us at CLCI, we have a team. We have a whole group of people that work here. So we're able to sort of spread our resources out. But that's because we started with Facebook. We started with Facebook. We grew to Instagram. We grew to YouTube. Now we're going to grow to TikTok. So but we weren't in those spaces until we were ready to move into those spaces and had the support to move into those spaces.
There you go.
So you just don't push yourself past what you're capable of doing. It's better to do one thing well than to do 10 things just sort of mediocre.
And then throw your arms up in the air and say, I quit.
Why is none of this working? Yes, and being frustrated, which is what we don't want anybody to do in this space. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you helping me out with that.
It's our pleasure.
Karen. In the chat asked Brooke, do you and/or Anthony offer your services for CLCI coaches? If not, can you make any recommendations? Brooke, you've got your.
I do a consultation. I do a 30-minute consultation with folks, and that's simply it's just you can come in. It's and we will work on whatever it is. You'd be surprised how much we can do in 30 minutes. I've had people who have booked them with regularity as they were working on their websites, and we just go over, give you homework, and then boom, we touch back base. Sometimes it's just reviewing what you guys have done and giving some feedback or expertise in that space. We used to have a company that absolutely did, but we don't do that anymore. So our focus is on CLCI now, and that's where we're keeping our focus. So I'm still able to offer that 30-minute consultation because it does not interfere so much with the focus of CLCI, but I was working myself into an early grave, and I have since closed that business. So as far as recommendations go, it depends on what you need and what you want to do. There's a lot of folks out there. Just make sure whatever it is, you find somebody that you trust and that jives with you and that communicates and can take feedback. I would say that somebody that's willing to work with you in that space. And it also very much depends on what you need, what you would need. But we do always check our emails that we give you after class. We put recommendations in there. Read the textbook. The very last of the level 1 is all geared towards marketing and helping you guys sort of DIY this if you want to DIY. If you just want somebody to do it for you, I know there's a lot of folks out there and it's big and it's scary, but my best recommendation is just don't settle on the first person you meet. Talk to them, work with them, look at their aesthetic and their style, and then also make sure that they're open to criticism, open to feedback, open to change, and can stick to a deadline.
Also add to that, see who they worked with, and if you can find like a portfolio or other websites they worked on, Because if they don't have that, how do you know what they're actually delivering is any quality whatsoever? Whoever you're looking at, there should be some way you can look at whatever it is that they worked on and then decide for yourself afterwards as well.
Thank you.
Iris, you had your question, your hand up a little bit earlier. Oh, we can't hear you
Oh,
again.
you're muted.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Okay, thank you. I would like to ask you also about, does the client prefer your experience, online coaching or face-to-face personal live coaching? What is your experience, Brooke and Anthony?
So mine's going to be a bit counter. I don't care what my client prefers. I'm going to work with people who are virtual, who are comfortable with virtual, because I'm doing this virtual.
Right.
I'm not going to bother with trying to market myself through, trying to find in-person clients. I want to work with virtual clients, so that's what I'm going to find. And there's plenty of people out there who will be, open to it. I'm
somebody who's I've worked both done consulting both in person, and that was when I was doing much more sort of hands-on, and then and virtual. I prefer virtual space. I absolutely do. That's where my preference is. That being said, I know plenty of people who want that in person. It's just two different things. If you want to do the in person, you've got to have the space. You have to, but there's a tremendous amount. It actually does make marketing easier to some degree, because you know that you have a smaller pool of people to pull from, but you know where to find them. They're going to be local. Whereas in virtual, it's now we've got a whole world to find clients in. So it can be a little more overwhelming in the virtual space. So it does help to simplify to do that in person. And there are absolutely people who want that in-person experience, that want to be that face-to-face energy. Lisa, our owner, she now she's virtual, but she also only did in person prior to this. So it's really, I think people are much more comfortable doing virtual now, especially since the pandemic. But I think also, though, there are folks who are craving that in-person experience as well. So you just got to decide what works best for you, and make that choice. And then Logan, I see you. Hello. Quickly though, I'm going to answer this. What have you done by way of referrals? I see your question, Jamie, and we will answer it after we work with Logan as soon as we're done here.
So I suppose I have a strategy that's sort of been rattling around in my head. And this is something that, and no offense to marketing, I find it to be one of the most fascinating sciences of the devil. And I only say that in the sense that it's can be very attractive on the surface. And if you don't have a level of discernment towards like understanding what you're getting, you can sometimes be tricked. I see that this is happening a lot in the Web3 space, especially with cryptocurrencies and things like that. And so I say this very playfully. So for myself personally, I'm trying to reconcile marketing myself, so like selling myself essentially, to my clients in a different way, or at least with a different strategy than I would consider, say going on Facebook or Instagram or all of these things that are what I call advertising engines. I think Google is an excellent search engine, but it's also an excellent advertising engine.
Absolutely it is.
And so I look at that stuff with a lot of skepticism. But at the same time, I recognize it's a very, very good tool. So in trying to market myself and trying to reconcile this idea that I have to in order to have a career in this field, I have been wondering about, and I'm actually really curious about your guys' opinion, your both opinion about this, is how to create a creative bend to life coaching. So for example, we have content creators on YouTube who like ContraPoints or Philosophy Tube or any of these people. It would
Two
say
YouTubers I do like to watch. I get a lot of enjoyment.
Yeah. I am a person who is fascinated by an act of storytelling in order to express a learning experience or a process of unfoldment for a character.
Mhm.
And I am, I write in my free time. And so I'm wondering, as a life coach, to start my practice, what you guys think of creating almost like what I guess in this case, I'm referring to ContraPoints, a dialogue between two people, a character who is looking to change themselves but doesn't necessarily know how, and another person who is actively being changed in the process of helping another person, but is committed to the well-being of this person that they're sort of talking to.
So with ContraPoints, and I can speak to ContraPoints specifically because I've watched a lot of her videos, she creates a dialogue between two personas, and I don't know if her real life is similar to the persona that she normally presents on YouTube, but there's that dialogue going on to illustrate a point for the sake of entertainment and also for, like, I guess, philosophical discussion. And that's worked for, I guess, since the Socratic method was invented. I guess, there's the dialogues as the way to deliver in-depth information between like fictional, characters. I wouldn't say problem, but the thing that needs to be considered with YouTube content like that, it's a gamble. With any sort of creative endeavor, like writing a book, creating a YouTube channel, you may not get the reception that you're looking for with just the creative aspect alone. ContraPoints does this. I'm sure Philosophy Tube does this as well. They also have that sort of devil's tool, which is SEO. They're leveraging YouTube, they're leveraging Google to try to bring people in to watch their videos as well. So
yeah,
go on, Brooke.
what I'm going to say is what it is it's content. It's great content. It's enriching content. It's mixed and married with probably a lot of marketing that you don't see or realize or recognize, right? I would have to do a deeper dive into the back end of how they're getting their following. If it's organic, I would assume though that much of it is actually pushed with there are marketing folks involved. That being said, if you're creating interesting content and I love what you're doing, one of my favorite teaching methods, and I just went through a course that did this the whole time. They would share, it's essentially like a case study or share a story, and is not at all directly applying to you or your business. And this was a business course, but I could take the lessons from it and learn and apply to myself, and learn from that. I think that as long as you're creating interesting content and something for people to watch and you're putting it out there, you've still got to figure out how to get them to watch it. Because the devil is that you can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't exist, right? So you have to, it's about getting that word out, getting that and finding the ways to do that. So if that can be done in ways though that maybe are more palpable to you, and maybe that's where you find somebody that's already got a following and you work with them and you make it a co-creation, because they're going to be able to bring in folks into your realm and opportunities that you may not otherwise be able to just do on your own. So there are, working in a collaborative space may be something that benefits you a lot and also gets you out of that icky marketing space that you don't like as much. So reaching out to folks that maybe you can collaborate with might be something that benefits you a great deal. I love, on a personal level, I love the idea of what you're doing. And I love the creative way you're doing it. And I think that it's actually a very interesting way to present coaching, especially if you present it truly as coaching and in that asking space where it's a dialogue where it's somebody sharing and then the coach is actually just asking those questions, those powerful questions. I think it could be very, very informative and creative way to present coaching, something that most people don't actually understand and what it is and what the nature of coaching is. Because most people think they're going to get advice when they go into a coaching session. So I like that a lot. And I would, for me, I figure out how you can comfortably market and in what spaces to do that and how to do that. But you got to get yourself out there and get that information out there. That's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. What's funny is I never wanted to be a marketer. And so I ended up in this space because around me, I realized that this is something I could serve, something I could do. I'm from a creative background. It was not something I planned to do, but I found out it was something I could do very well. And it was something that people needed. And so here I am.
Can I ask you a follow-up question to that?
Mhm.
With someone with a creative background in advertising, how has advertising and marketing appealed to your creative side?
Well, see, I have two sides. I'm creative, but I'm also strategic. And I think that most people who are creative have that strategic to some degree, because what is creativity? It's connecting dots that in ways that other people may not connect them. Right. And it's so I create stories. When I help brand, I am creating the look, the story, the voice of a brand, of a company. And it's bringing human elements into it, because if you're talking to your client and you're speaking to your client, you're speaking to that human being and being a voice for that human being in many ways. And so there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. I also have a deep and pervasive love of puzzle solving. So this for me, marketing for me, I approach it a lot of times like a great big human puzzle. Like how can I speak to this person? How can I find a way that I can tap into people so that they understand this amazing thing we offer? Because I think what we offer is amazing. It makes my job easy. I'm not selling things that I would never want to sell something I couldn't support. I thought was a horrible thing. So having clients that have genuinely been doing things that want to help people and make people's life better. And then that creative gets to come in when I get to do that, the look, the feel, the voice, and create the sort of thing that is original, and original for my client and for my client's client, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, thank you for your explanation. I hope I didn't offend when saying that I thought it was the devil science. I honestly,
no,
It is.
I don't know.
I 100% believe that it is. I get the same sort of icky vibes sometimes when I think about it too much. But what you talked about, creativity and marrying that with advertising and sort of like, I guess, the more icky capitalist kind of stuff like that. I want to do a live topic on it because I could just talk for like an hour straight.
We can.
Very subject. I recently listened to another podcast that had stuff about that, but very interesting topic. But I think we'll need to cut it short though, because Dan has arrived and we're almost at the hour.
I'm gonna, yeah.
Well, thank you for answering my question.
I know. I'm the buzzkill.
Really quick, I'm just going to end the live stream. Thank you guys out there watching. If you're watching and you enjoyed this, make sure you share, like, etc. And also please check out Certified Life Coach Institute. We certify life coaches in 3 days, and you could be one of